what's your secret? You got the kind of vibe that leaves one speechless. It could be model multitasking genius. Yeah, you got it all.
So welcome to Breakthrough Conversations with Rhoda and Company. This is where we explore the journeys of extraordinary leaders. And today, I am so honored to have Dr. Markay L. Winston, recently, about a year or so ago, appointed Superintendent of Monroe County Community School Corporation, formerly Deputy and Assistant Superintendent, and with decades in school psychology and educational leadership in Cincinnati and Chicago. Dr. Winston has shattered, broken ceilings and redefined resilience in K through 12 administration. In this episode, we're going to dive into the roadmap of her career, which I am so inspired by, and the challenges she faced, which I can truly resonate with, and the lessons she's gathered along the way. Welcome, Dr. Markay Winston.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I so appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. We need to spotlight more women that look like us, especially in leadership, so we can inspire a younger generation of leaders that are future leaders to not give up. So, Markay, having said that, you began your career as a school psychologist. I did not know that. And administrator, motivated by early experiences with equity. And me coming from low-income housing, I say from the projects to the boardroom, and going to school hungry, and sometimes meeting teachers who didn't really care about you, but fortunately I had some that did, and they inspired me, and I still remember them to this day. Can you share what sparked your passion for lifting up the underserved students?
Absolutely. I think it's a combination of things. I was fortunate and blessed to live in a household where my mom and my dad gave in our community charity, charitable contributions, making sure that we were giving back was just part of the fabric of who we are and how we were brought up. And so living that, witnessing that by virtue of how my mother lived her life and our role within our church community, I think that was just part of the foundation. And I think it carried into my school life as well. You know, I often will talk about the fact that I have a cousin named Elliot, and when we went to church together, we sang in the choir together, we rode the school bus together, we hung out together, along with all the other children. But when we arrived at school, Elliot went somewhere, and the rest of us went to our classrooms. And I remember thinking as a very young child, that is odd. And then at the end of the day, he would get back on the bus with the rest of us, and I would sit there and wonder, where's Elliot?
Right.
And so I think that was really my first introduction to equity, and my first role serving in an advocacy role in some ways. Because I remember talking to the teachers and saying, hey, you know, leaving class and wandering around the building trying to figure out where he was. And he was in the basement back underneath some stairwells. And back in the 70s, I'm telling my age a little bit, but that is how students who learned differently were treated. And out of sight, out of mind. And it never sat well with me. And so fast forward into college and graduate school, I began my work as a school psychologist because I wanted to support students who learned differently, who might have learned on the fringes, and who might have been underserved in some ways or disadvantaged in other ways. And so I think that's probably my first exposure. And so my work has been around how do I make sure that students with disabilities, varying abilities, are included in general education.
Yes, that's amazing. And now I'm wondering, where's Elliot?
Exactly.
Yes. And there's a lot of Elliots in the world, and you're right. And so out of sight, out of mind. That is such a powerful, and in a young age, that tugged at you. So it's really inspiring to see when people have found their passion and their purpose and they meet up. And then you get to walk in that, and it doesn't feel like work because you're doing what you were designed to do.
It's never felt like work. It has always felt like a calling. Felt like the work that I was supposed to be doing, and really speaking on behalf of the children whose voices were not heard or whose families did not know how to advocate for their children. And so my role as a school psychologist, I knew I wanted to be in a helping role. I thought I wanted to be a teacher, but my teaching role was very different in terms of working as a school psychologist. And in that capacity, my job was to support teachers on how to support these children inside their classrooms. And so that then led me into additional leadership roles because I was tapped to lead this initiative. I was tapped to lead that effort. I was tapped to do different kinds of trainings and professional development for teachers and principals and other leaders. And so that kind of began the journey. And to be honest with you, I was pretty much a reluctant leader because I like my job. I had the audacity to think I was good at my job and I was comfortable. I don't need to do all that, but a lot of my colleagues and friends said, Markay, they're making the big bucks, but they're pulling you in to go do the work. You need to go make some of that money too. And so then I began to stretch out a little bit, and I was frequently recruited into the next role.
Yes, I'm so glad you answered that calling. Sometimes we have to be pushed to purpose. So yes. So from Cincinnati to Chicago CP and now Monroe County Community School Corporation, in roles including Chief Academic Officer, what barriers did you encounter and how did you navigate the progression to superintendent?
Well, I think the first thing, Rhoda, is I never really aspired to be a superintendent.
Really?
I did not. I was content doing what I was doing. I always thought I wanted to be at the grassroots level and working with children. There was a part of me that was interested in policy work and systems change and the laws, but becoming a superintendent was really not on my radar. But I guess people saw leadership capabilities in me. And so I was oftentimes recruited to move into this leadership role or another leadership role. And I was successful in those roles as well. And then I was encouraged to participate in a superintendent's training academy, an aspiring superintendent's academy. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to be a superintendent, but sure, I'll go. But before doing that, I did a chief academic officer. And that was probably more my passion than anything else because it's about designing curriculum, making sure that instructional strategies are appropriate for every learner, regardless of how they learn, but that we're planning for them. And so my ascendancy into the superintendency is a blessing from above, to be sure. And I think it's also a calling now that I'm in this role. As I became an assistant superintendent and then moved into the deputy superintendent positions, I enjoyed being a number two. And I was pretty darn good at being a number two. I felt like I was kind of behind the scenes, making things happen and making my superintendent look good. That was my job. And not thinking that I was ever going to become a superintendent because it just wasn't on my radar. And then this opportunity presented itself.
That's awesome. So I know in 2017, you joined the Monroe County Community School Corporation as assistant superintendent number 2, like you just described. And by mid-2024, you were interim superintendent. And in January 2025, you were named permanent. So what were the hardest challenges during that journey and then coming to terms with yourself that I should be leading at that level?
I think that's first of all, just a great question. What were some of the challenges? I think the biggest challenge was getting out of my own head. And, it's easy to have that self-doubt and uncertainty. Can I really, wait a minute, I said yes, but can I really do this job? And I think we all have that to one degree or another. That was probably the biggest hurdle. But then when I really reflected on it, Rhoda, and I thought about the different stops on my journey throughout my educational career, it's about the skill sets. The skills that I have acquired over the course of my career are generalizable. Communication, becoming an effective communicator, decision making, relationship building. It's all about relationships. So all of the prerequisite skills that I had been building and developing over the course of the last several years, when I really reflected on it, I thought, yes, I can do this job. And yes, I am the right person.
Yeah.
I am the right person for right now. And
Right.
so I did need to do a self-assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized that not only did I have the capabilities, people saw this in me many years before I saw it in myself.
Right.
And so as I am in this role now, I am enjoying the role. It is hard. It's the hardest job I've ever had.
Right.
And yet we are doing great things for kids each and every day. We are supporting our teachers, supporting our administrators, and it's all about the relationships. And I've always been a relational leader. And I think that has served me well.
That's important. When I heard you talk about the journey and the challenges, what you were saying, what came to my mind was imposter syndrome. I know I don't like the term imposter syndrome. I think we give it too much weight, but I heard someone describe that to me the other day in a very simple, relatable way. And that is the people that's promoting you and encouraging you to press forward, they're focused on your gifts, your talents, and your strengths. And so they saw that in you long before you did yourself. Why? Because when we're looking in the mirror, we're looking at our gaps and our opportunities for improvement, and we are believing that that's what they're looking at, but it's not. And so that creates the misalignment. And you're right, it's all about the stories we tell ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The interesting thing too, I think, is it's about making sure that you have folks in your corner who are willing to not only mentor you, but they're also willing to kind of speak up for you.
Yes.
Advocate for you.
Advocate.
And I've been fortunate. I've had folks that have been there for me in so many ways and to speak on my behalf. I oftentimes talk about my board of directors. My board of directors is kind of like my go-to people.
Yes.
My folks who will speak on my behalf, who, if I'm not at the table, they will bring my name into the conversation and say, have you talked to Dr. Markay?
Yes.
She needs to be at this table. And I've been fortunate and blessed to be at the table where lots of key decisions have been made, both in Cincinnati Public Schools, where I was for many years, but also at the third largest school district in the country, Chicago Public Schools. I was at the executive table for 4.5 years where I was in the room where decisions were being made. And I cannot tell you the impact that had on me. And I thought, if I can survive Chicago Public Schools,
you can survive any.
That's probably the point in time where I began to contemplate the possibility of a superintendency.
Yes, yes. When I was doing my research on you, Markay, and I learned that when you stepped into the superintendent role, that you launched what you call a 3-phase entry plan: listen, learn, lead. Listen, learn, lead involved nearly 200 listening sessions and building student and young kid advisory councils. How did those actions demonstrate leadership and build trust?
The beauty of it is that, one, I was already a known entity because I'd been the assistant soup and I had been the deputy soup for a few years. So I already knew, people knew me and I knew them. However, I didn't want to take that for granted. It was just as important, if not more important, that I not assume that I know everything I need to know about the community or the school corporation, because I wasn't the number one. I was behind the scenes getting stuff done. And so I got a nice view into where everybody is. So, and it really was over 200 of those listening sessions, but it was important to me to reestablish relationships, and in some instances, establish new relationships from this chair, because the minute you step into this chair, it feels different.
Right.
It just feels different. And so I wanted folks to get to know me as the lead learner of this organization. As an educational institution, I'm the lead learner. And I need to be demonstrating my commitment to learning as well. And so listening to our families, listening to our teachers, and the best part about it, quite honestly, was establishing our student advisory. I have a superintendent's student advisory group, And I meet with them on a regular basis because I want to hear from them what the
Right.
experiences are that they're having. I can't lead as superintendent if I don't know how the decisions the adults are making are impacting our students. And so that was one of the best things that I did, to listen, to learn as much as I could, and then to lead accordingly.
Right. So you actually get to meet with students.
Yes, I do.
That's amazing. So for those that might be listening and may not really understand what is a superintendent and what role, what does it involve and what's the scope of responsibility, can you like describe it in a hierarchy? Like the superintendent reports to who and what are you accountable for?
That's an excellent question. So as the school superintendent, I have 7 bosses.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the board of school trustees. Those are 7 folks who have been elected officials from our community to have oversight, governing oversight of the school corporation. So those are my bosses, and they kind of set the direction. And then my job is to do the execution and implementation. What that means is I'm responsible for all facets of the operations of our schools. So we educate over 10,000 children. I employ over 2,000 adults in various positions, and we run a transportation department.
Wow.
That transports more people than the local city does. We run a food service department that feeds thousands of meals every day to our children. We run nursing services, facilities and construction, human resources, curriculum, technology. So it's almost like running a little mini city in some ways. It's truly, when I think about it, I'm the CEO of this organization and I'm responsible for everything. The buck stops with me. I recognize that, but I've also been smart enough to know to get the right people on the bus, good to great.
Yes.
And to make sure I get them in the right seats on the bus.
Right.
And so I don't do this by myself. The board has entrusted me. I am their single employee. But then I've needed to surround myself with really talented people. And so that's how you do this work.
Yes. That's a really good overview. And now I can visualize it. Like you said, you're the CEO. It's almost like you're the mayor of the city. Like how many schools is it that? And it's like you said, it's more than the schools. It's transportation. It's nursing. It's deep.
It's food service. It's everything.
Yes.
It's all the technology and the computers and the phones and all of the infrastructure. And so we serve 23 schools and over 10,000 students. And I serve children from 6 weeks old up to 22 years old.
Wow.
I got the whole gamut. We run early learning, early childhood, preschool programs. And so it's exciting. There's never a dull moment, Rhoda. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. And I wonder, some days I wonder, what took me so long to do this job? But I do think it's all in due time. And it's when the Lord directs you to step into these roles and when he opens those doors.
And I believe that all the things that you've experienced along the way was setting you up for this. And it's like the perfect timing. This is when it was supposed to happen. Why? Because they're getting the best version of Dr. Markay. They're getting the best version. You've had a lot of rich experience. This is not part of the questions I sent you, but one of the questions that come to mind is what role, because now you got to you also, everything you just described, in addition to that, you have to keep up with futuristic things that's coming on the scene that impact education. And the one thing that's coming to mind is AI.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the role of AI. We can talk about that. I have to have you come back because that's super interesting to me. I just signed up for a 5-week AI certification program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It starts Monday, so I'm excited about it. So I'll have you back. We can talk more about that. But Markay, what actionable advice would you give women who may be aiming for the top leadership roles, particularly women of color, and especially in education and other sectors where they're underrepresented? What advice would you give them?
I think it's a great question. And I think the advice that I would say would be, get yourself ready, be at the table, be willing to go above and beyond, learn as much as you possibly can. When you're given that assignment, don't just do the assignment, excel at that assignment. Make sure that you're noticed. Make sure that you are leading up. And leading up is how do you speak to your superiors? How do you inform them of the work that you're doing? Make sure that if you're part of a project that you are carrying through, you know, and doing your part of that particular project. You know, I think about before I ever became an assistant superintendent, I was often entrusted to lead major initiatives for the school district.
Yes.
And you have to believe that I led them well. And so therefore I was trusted to lead more and more important ones. And so when you get those opportunities, you really got to make sure that you're ready and that you listen very intently and that you act based upon that. But find opportunities where you can be in the room. The room where it happened really does matter. I think the fact that I've been at the table, I've been in the room for more than 20 years where decisions are being made, it helps me to understand now that I oversee a $200 million operating budget, approximately a $200 million operating budget. I need to know how to allocate those dollars, and I need to make sure that I'm spending those dollars on behalf of children. So every experience that I've had, it's so amazing to me, Rhoda. When I think about young days of my career, I was asked to be on the facilities master plan team. And I'm thinking, I don't know nothing about no facilities master plan. Why did my superintendent put me on that team? I think about another time when my superintendent said, Markay, I want you to be on this budget commission. I didn't know nothing about budgets at 25, 26 years old. What do I know about millions of budgets? Guess what I'm doing right now?
Budgets. And a big
I'm in the process of doing a facilities master plan. I'm in the process. Well, I just finished approving a $200 million operating budget. I'm about to announce a budget commission helping us take a look at how we're spending our dollars. All of the things that I did 20 years ago and I didn't think I knew a thing about it, it's coming back around. And that's about being at the table, being at the ready, and being willing to take whatever assignment. My last comment is this. My superintendent, she used to say to me, Markay, you're my fix-it girl. I said, what do you mean?
Right.
And she said, no, I know if there's a problem with the parent, I can send you out, you're going to get it fixed. If I need somebody to be at this meeting, you're going to be there and you're going to fix it. And so being willing to leverage your skills and your capabilities for the benefit of your organization. That's the advice that I would give to any woman. That's the advice I would give to women of color. And find someone who's going to advocate on your behalf.
That's huge. That's huge. It sounds very similar, Markay, in my career. I've been tapped a lot and asked to lead medical records. I was like, what's medical records? And I ended up being part of a large electronic medical record implementation, and then been asked to lead HR system implementations. And the other thing I heard you say without actually saying it explicitly is having a brand. You had that brand because of how you work and the work you did and your willingness to say yes and your willingness to be in the room. And so even though we don't know, I say, oh, I'm nervous, I'm scared. I did it anyway. Just do it afraid. That's great advice.
Can I interject right there too? I started to make this comment because oftentimes as women, we sometimes have the tendency to sell ourselves short and say, oh, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. When in fact, we are probably so much more ready than we realize. And I don't mean this to throw any shade in any kind of way, but there are similar experiences where men say, oh yeah, I'm ready to go. And they haven't done half the things. But they willing to jump out. Whereas as women, and I know for myself, there are times like, Markay, you're not ready to be an assistant superintendent yet. You should have this, and that experience. And then after you do those things, you'll be ready to be an assistant superintendent. I think I did the same thing in terms of being a superintendent. Markay, you're not quite ready to be a superintendent. Whereas I know folks who have fewer experiences than myself might have become a superintendent before I became a superintendent. So to our female counterparts, I would say get those experiences, get your foot in the door, and don't shortchange yourself. Get the experiences to be sure, but recognize it's about the skill sets that are necessary.
Yes, that is so true. We sell ourselves short. I I'm looking for another role, and I'm looking online at some of the job postings. I was so impressed by this one posting. At the very bottom of the job posting, the company put, "We are aware that women and people of color tend to not apply for jobs." I took a screenshot of it when they don't meet 100% of the qualifications.
Yes.
We encourage you to please apply. Do not say, it said something along those lines. Do
Oh
not.
my gosh.
I was like, every company should do this. That is so
Yes.
true.
Yeah.
I'm going through that now, Markay. I aspire to be a chief human resource officer. I've led almost every function in HR. But the
Exactly.
two little functions I've never ran, I keep saying, "Oh,
I'm not ready.
I need to do that first before."
No, you don't. No, you don't. I'm telling you, you don't.
Yes.
Mhm.
So what's next for you and your school district? What's next big thing on your agenda? I heard you say about the budget transparency initiative you're working on. What else?
Well, as part of the budget transparency initiative and effort, last night we just rolled out our new financial portal, school finance portal, and we call it Every Dollar, Every Student. And so I'm really excited about that. It's about really educating and informing our community about school finance. Where do the dollars come from? How are we spending those dollars? And most importantly, how are those dollars impacting the children that we serve? That's my latest piece. And that's a big piece because school finance is so often misunderstood. And it's important that our taxpayers, and we're a referendum community, which means that we go to the community every 8 years or so and ask them to raise their property taxes potentially in support of the schools, because the monies that we get from the state and the feds are not sufficient to cover the operating costs. I just named off all of those areas. It costs millions of dollars to run those kinds of services. I mean, I have a full-blown HR department. I have a full-blown transportation department. I've got a full-blown food service department. And so I think a second part of the financial transparency and educating our community, we do have some tough decisions in our community to make. Our expenses are growing faster than our revenue. That's across the whole country. We're seeing a decline in birth rates. We're seeing a decline in enrollment. So part of the challenge that I have is figuring out, how do we continue to offer the quality services that we deliver every day in every classroom and every school? And how do we do that with fewer dollars? That's the biggest challenge that's ahead of me. And really leading and facilitating conversations with our employee groups and with our families as to what that looks like and what that means. And how do we go about making decisions? If we have fewer dollars, how do we prioritize what we continue doing, and how do we prioritize what we no longer do? That's probably the biggest challenge that I have ahead of me. And that's something I stepped into day one when I stepped into the interim superintendent role. It's amazing how much transparency you finally get about where the finances really are when you become the superintendent. In those other roles, you don't really know. And so that's my number one priority right now, is making sure that we are good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars and that we're making good decisions for children.
That's awesome. This has been really wonderful for me and eye-opening and insightful, because I don't think I had a full appreciation or understanding for what the superintendent role is. It is like running a company, and it's a big one. And so you have a lot of responsibility, and then you're dealing with precious lives and futures. And so it's mission. I appreciate all that you and your team do to make sure we're providing the exceptional educational services that we can for our students, because it matters. I'm going to shift gears and move to what I call rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first one is, what is one word that captures your leadership philosophy today?
Servant leadership. I know that's 2 words, but to serve. Serving.
To serve. And then, what's the quickest piece of advice you give I know you gave some advice, but what's the quickest piece of advice you would give a woman who wants to break barriers in her career?
Find a sponsor.
Find a
Get
sponsor.
somebody to sponsor you, not just mentor, to sponsor you.
Yeah, that will speak on your behalf.
That's right.
I remember when I first started at one company, on my first day, my leader said, "What do you want to be known for?" And I said, "Why do you ask that?" He said, "Because when I'm in the room, in the meetings, I'm going to be saying, oh, y'all need Rhoda on that. Rhoda this. Rhoda likes to get it done. She likes to solve problems."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that question.
Yeah. What do you want
That's
to be known
excellent.
for? We're still friends. We went to breakfast the other day. He hired me 22 years ago, and he said it was the best hiring decision he ever made.
Oh,
I
look
said,
at
"You probably tell all your prior hires that." He said, "No."
He said, "No, I do not."
Yeah. And then what is one habit or ritual or mindset that has helped you stay grounded while leading at these really high levels?
Ooh, what an excellent question. I think one habit is talking to the people.
Thank you.
Going into
Yeah.
classrooms, getting into schools, going into neighborhoods, going to community events. That
Yeah.
is my superpower.
That is
My
awesome.
superpower is meeting people where they are,
Yes.
and I'm a really good listener, Rhoda. I'm a really good listener, and I listen intently. And so that's why my initial efforts to listen, to learn, and to lead, the listening is also one of my superpowers. But I think being amongst the people and engaging and letting them get to know you
Yeah.
as a person, as a human being. You know,
Yeah.
part of our challenge is how do we humanize the superintendency?
Yes. Yes.
That's
I'm
important.
really big advocate on human-centric leadership. Yes. I love it. So, Dr. Markay Winston, I want to thank you for sharing your candid and inspiring journey from championing equity as a psychologist to leading an entire district. Your story reminds us that resilience, intentional listening, and intentional human-centric leadership, which what I call principled leadership, it truly pays off. So to our listeners, if you're on a leadership path, take her advice to heart, stay bold, stay curious, and build your alliances and secure you sponsors with an S if you can.
That's right.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm Rhoda Banks, and this is Breakthrough Conversations with Rhoda and Company. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.
Hey, what's your secret? You got the kind of vibe that leaves me speechless. It could be model multitasking genius. Yeah, you got it all. Hey, what's your story? A kick-ass mom and 40 under 40. It's soccer practice in your high heel glory. Yeah, you do it all.